We say a lot of no to our kids.
They're open to the abundance of
Yeah.
it because they don't have the limiting.
None of the other teachers were teaching this.
They should explore. They should fall down. They should fail.
Well, not anymore.
We were talking about money,
If you are not scared in your gut,
but sometimes it hurts.
Trains your brain how to come to a problem, how to solve it, how to think.
We're going to find out.
I'm certainly going to go squeeze that lemon.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of SHE.E.O. Today, we're going to be talking about the difference of why we should be saying yes and why we should be saying no, and who and when and where we use those things. So I kind of want to start because honestly, it's a topic that I deal with every single week, every single day, I feel like, when it comes to clients, when it comes to my kids. I had a situation last week where I had a client that I was wanting to work with for a really long time, and we were back and forth on this deal, and I really wanted to close this client. But as much as the dollar amount looked very appealing, it still wasn't what it should be for that type of project, and we couldn't close it. And I could have, ideally, I could have gotten in there and maybe made a little bit and maybe slowly gotten myself to, do something bigger for the project, or at least gotten my foot in the door, but it felt like it should have been a no. And I do like to be like a yes person when it comes to business. So I don't know if you guys have ever dealt with anything like that, but I deal with it constantly.
I feel like it also depends, the yes and the no, where you are, what stage you are in your career. And like in the beginning, I feel like you have to prove yourself. You have to get credibility. You have to expand your portfolio and, expand yourself, grow as a career person.
Right, 100%.
So sometimes that yes, it depends, even though it's uncomfortable or something that you're not sure of, sometimes that yes is really necessary for you to grow.
It's interesting that you had mentioned that about business and projects and things like that, right? So coming from a systems background when it comes to my company, Obsidian Thorn, how we help our clients. This is why we enforce the go, no-go process, right? So you have those prerequisites of what are the indications of a go and what are the indications of a no. So you look at all the variances of what are the risks. Do you have capacity? What is the budget? Can you carry payroll while you're going through this project, because you can't invoice it until you're 60 days out.
Right.
Type of
that's
thing,
a big deal.
right?
Yeah,
It's
of course.
an absolute big deal. And what are your margins? Because a lot of my clients say, okay, our hard margin, bottom line is 8% on a project like this. But the project is $40 million. It's of a hotel that you can see right on the freeway, and it's great exposure, but it's going to take me to 4%.
Yeah.
That's a go for us.
Yeah.
Because of all the things that it could bring in the future.
Right. So it's a lot of analyzing,
I
think,
it's absolutely
when it comes to business, for sure. And I think putting those things in place, which is what you do for clients, is super important. And I don't know if anybody really has, like if they don't have someone like you doing that, like I can tell you I don't necessarily have that all the time. As a boutique construction company, I don't always have these like going in and knowing what's a yes or no. We do have our basic questions like, are they a homeowner?
Sure.
Do they have the funds? Like basic questions. You don't have the funds, I can't do the job type of thing. If they're renting, I can't really have the conversation with you because you don't own the property. I can't. So like the super basic stuff. But sometimes when the project, you're offered, $300,000. And they're like, this is our budget. You go and you're like, yes, you have $300,000, amazing. And then you go in and analyze it. You're like, cool, your project should be $450.
Right.
It's really nice that you want it to be for $300. And it looks really sweet.
Absolutely.
But it won't be when you're ending it. So I get analyzing it, but sometimes it hurts, especially when you're like planning it and analyzing the plans. You're like, okay, cool, you have the budget, we're good to go.
Right.
And then at the end, it's a no, and there's really no way for you, there's no way around it.
Right. So
it's hard.
Those big projects, and one last thing I want to add to that is my goal is always to say yes because we're increasing that revenue for a client, right? So it's always going to have to be like, how do we now, this is a no currently, but how do we turn it into a yes?
Yeah.
So we'll always go back to, because at that point we have nothing to lose. It's a no for us, right?
Right.
But I'm certainly going to go squeeze that lemon just one more time to see if I can get a yes out of it. Like, for example, we had a landscape client that had all this budget, but in order for us to bill, it's like 90 days out. And so my client couldn't carry that payroll in 90 days,
Right.
But because we had to pay for material, 200,000 material, all these things.
It's a lot.
But then we went back to the client and said, listen, you've seen our work. You've seen it. We are like top-notch elites in this industry, in this area, in your 35-mile radius.
Right.
What does it take for me to get you guys to cover some of the material, because I can't carry this for my clients.
Right, like some negotiation.
That's now
is
when the
important,
negotiation starts. So a no necessarily isn't a no, because to me, a no is just like, it's the beginning of a negotiation.
True.
So until
That's
they
true
say,
too.
go F yourself, it's
Right.
not going to work.
Right. A no is not always a no. A no
Right.
is a maybe.
A no is a maybe.
A yes is a yes. A no is a maybe.
Yeah, that's
And
interesting.
then calling the police and asking you to leave is a no. We were talking about money. But what about ethics? Because that's something that I dealt with more with the kids aspect, like with Fishbowl, where I work with a lot of kids. So I've had different situations that I've come across where I don't really align with the person that's in front of me, with the way that they treat kids, with the way that they speak to kids, with the way that they think that kids can do certain things or can't do. But the opportunity was there. So without getting into it too much, the opportunity looks so sweet, but you're like, well, we're not really aligned. So am I going in trying to change that person's opinion, or am I going and saying no? And I straight up say no. And I don't know if that's the best way to go, but I felt like for me, because I'm working with so many kids and I have a way of how I do things, because I think that every kid should be able to do anything that they want to do, right? Like they're conditioned right now, even at like 4 years old, they can do a lot of things that we might not think that they can. And when certain, let's just say administration people don't see that because they haven't taught kids in that manner, or even sometimes parents, they didn't grow up with that kind of support system, then it's automatically like, no, my kid can't do that.
So the thing, you're not only working with the kids, you're working with their parents and how they grew up,
right?
And what they were taught,
right?
And your limitation with what you can do, and you have to be very careful also, and
it's a lot.
What you say and what you do with them. Sometimes you have to really be true to what you believe that kid can do,
right?
And maybe it's not a yes or no, but like actually give them like explanation and explain to them. And like kind of like it's a process to go with them, like it's not like right away, like
nothing's right away.
It's not right away. It's a process,
right.
And then you slowly get there, and they might actually even change what their parents have taught them, like to rethink differently.
Yeah. So for me, with kids in general, even with my own kids, it's hard for me to tell them no for a lot of reasons. Obviously, if they're going to hurt themselves, then I'm going to say no. But sometimes even that, sometimes even like doing something that I might think is a little dangerous, like playing soccer in the rain. Like for me, for a long time, I was like, you're not doing that. Like you're going to slip, you're going to break something. It's not okay. And then my husband will be like, that's the best time is to play soccer in the rain. And they're drenched and they're dirty and they're messy and it's fun. So I don't know. I like, it's just a weird.
I feel like we say a lot of no to our kids from many reasons, but the right ones. I feel like we say it because we might be tired. It's inconvenient for us, or the fact that like we think it might be dangerous, and like we put our fears in their heads, which is the big thing, putting our fears into their heads.
Right.
And unless it's really dangerous, like jumping off a bridge or whatever, I mean, I think they should explore. They should fall down. They should fail to know how to react in a mature way when they hear no, and not just always getting their way.
Yeah.
And they have to also, when they hear the word no, they know how to say it themselves to other people.
Can you give an explanation with no?
With kids, 99% of the time, I do explain to them.
Okay, that's
I have to make them understand why I say no. It's not just like because I said so. I actually give them the reasoning behind it so they'll understand my thinking process.
Yeah.
When sometimes it is inconvenient and I'm too tired, or it's just like it's kind of like a reflex, of saying no, just right away. No, why? Yeah. Because you remember last time you made a mess, and this time I don't want to clean up after yourself. So sometimes when I do say the right away, the no, I do come back and I do explain to them, because I think it's important for them to understand that there's a reason why I say it. Right. I actually said a lot of no's when they were little. But I got a lot better because I do want them to explore and be creative and let their energy outlet, So
it's important. I mean, were you like that? You have a different generation. Your child is your child is older. Like my oldest is almost 15.
Yeah.
And then our other younger children are, still elementary school students. So I'm curious on how that looks.
So as when we travel, it's always together, right? And the biggest thing, not anymore. When she finished high school, she's like, I want to go overseas, but by myself. And so we're like, okay, like, what were you thinking? So she's like, I'm not going to let you go to a third world country without mom and daddy. Sorry. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Even if you're 40, it's like, okay, who was coming with you?
Yeah.
But she's like, I want to go to London. And my husband's first reaction was, no freaking way. How am I going to get to you? And so
that's cute.
We had to kind of like sit down and be like, okay, like it's okay. I mean, London, we've been there. We know where she's going to go. We know the safe places to be, so just control it that way, but let's let her. And that was like the best experience for her, to leave the country on her own with a girlfriend, at 18, and go to the weekend concert in London, and just have the time of her life.
So just for a short period, or did she move out there?
Oh no, she was there for just a week. But as soon as she got there,
a week, a week of you not sleeping.
A week, but she would call and be like, "Daddy, this room is too small. Can those kind of calls?"
Daddy, what's your credit card?
She's like, okay, I thought you were going to be by yourself, this whole trip. But we've also said no on trips. Like, listen, she gets her birthright trip to Israel.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So there's a couple of times where she's like, I'm going to go, we're going, and then a bomb. And then so it's like, baby, that's a no.
Yeah.
That's a no right now.
Yeah.
I feel like also like when you say a lot of no's, it kind of loses the effect of a no.
Yeah.
When you say no's and then like you say a lot of yeses, so when you do say the no, I feel like it's a hard no. They'll know there's a reason why you say
no. She
no.
knows better than Dad.
I think there's some. So my middle son will literally look at me and be like, "So it's a maybe. So it's a no for the next 5 minutes.
Yes.
So it's a." And obviously, it's not good if it's part of his personality. And, I actually find it really good in sales. So I always talk to him about it, like, you're going to be the killer salesperson, because a no is not a no for you.
Yeah.
When it comes to, obviously there's certain things, respecting other people and respecting women and stuff like that we talk about, as far as like, there's no other, like, if it's a no, it's a no. Even with his sister, if he wants to go and play with her and she says no, she said no. It's not, you need to, we talk about that constantly, because I'm always very terrified of that, for them to make that like little bit of mistake that can really change their life. So that's a hard no. But for him, a no with me, with certain things, like, you can't have chocolate right now. Okay, cool. He looks at me, he's like, okay. I'll come back in 10 minutes and ask you the same question. Yeah, so but it's really funny though, because my parents, looking back at it, was just really, everything was a yes.
Yes.
Everything was, I wasn't restricted on sleepovers. I wasn't restricted on what I would wear. I wasn't restricted. And I was a good kid.
Yeah.
Everything that they wanted, I did. I was a good student. I wasn't a straight A student, but I was a good student. I had lots of friends. Sleepovers were at my
oldest?
parents', yeah.
You're the oldest? Okay.
But
so
my
am
brother's
I.
the same. Same thing with my brother. Sleepovers were at our house. We wanted a party. It was our house, under my parents' roof. My mom is still very much like, invite everybody over. So I'm not exactly the same. I still do sleepovers at our house and play dates at our house and stuff like that. But my mom was never, even my dad, it was never a no. And if they felt like there was something that was not great, then they would have conversations with me, but it was always a yes, which I kind of wish that I was able to
I grew up completely different. Like my parents had no yeses.
Turn this off. I'm realizing. Sorry.
They were not there.
Oh.
They were not there. I actually grew up by myself. You know, I taught myself the yeses. I taught myself the nos.
Interesting.
Luckily, they got a good kid. I'm also the oldest.
Okay.
And I was very responsible. You know, I volunteered. I worked since I was little. I did everything myself. I took myself places. I bought myself stuff.
Wow.
I was very self-sufficient, very young age. Even like when I was in first grade, I would take my two twin brothers, from daycare. I would bring them home, warm up lunch, give them a shower, everything. I'm very, very responsible. Yeah, I was a very responsible kid. So my parents never... I had to be, because my parents were very shunty, you know, like they were like, do whatever you want, you know? They weren't my dad was working, and my mom is very free-spirited until today. And I had to learn it myself. Yeah. So I feel like it's also maybe a different generation. Now we're more like helicopter parents. Like we actually we explain things to them. We give them room for their emotions. We actually work on relationships with them.
Yeah.
Back then, you were afraid of your dad. And
I wasn't. But I know. I know.
In general, a lot of kids were afraid of their dads. You know, they're like, wait until your dad comes home and all that stuff. So that relationship was based on fear and not connection. Right. And I don't know, but I grew up with a mom who was not really there. I mean, she was there if I needed her, but there was no explaining, there was no talking, there was no connection, you know, like sitting down and having one-on-one time. And everything that I did, I learned by myself. I learned by myself. You?
Huh? Now, do you think that it affects like who you are as a person now?
Yes. First of all, in different ways. First of all, I'm very responsible. I'm very independent. I do everything by myself, and nothing scares me. Yeah. You know, at the age of 16, I moved out on my own.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. At the age of 17, almost 18, I moved to Israel. I did a year of volunteering.
Oh, fun.
I traveled a lot of places by myself. You know, I started working at a really young age. I did everything myself. Like, I figured out what I want to do in life, you know. I was my own teacher. I was my own teacher for life. But at the same time, with my kids, I'm doing the opposite. Because being a parent, not just about saying yes or no, it's actually it's to give them an explanation. Right. And the explanation is to also make them understand you, make them have that connection with you. I feel like that's also connecting, you know, like it's not just yes, no, like that's it.
There has to be an explanation.
There's an explanation, so yeah.
I have with my students, with my schools, a lot of the time, because it's like a new program, it doesn't really exist. There's not that much of it. And if there is, like entrepreneurship is usually for like really gifted kids or kids that can, pay for this crazy tuition so it's different, and trying to explain it sometimes to schools and to parents.
LAUSD.
Any school, yes, but also any school, because it's different, because you're breaking into like what they've been teaching up until now. Mm-hmm. So you're saying, okay, math, you want to make it more tangible. It needs to relate to them. You know, like if you're going to do geometry.
Oh, geometry.
Geometry.
There is a geography too.
There is geography, but if you're going to teach math and you're going to do geometry, edit that out.
Hell no.
You should be showing architecture. Yeah. You should be showing how to read plans. You should be explaining that. So we actually had my son in middle school had this experience with a new teacher, young and like super hip, and kind of gave him that. He had a lesson in one of his classes, and I loved it because it was really geared towards like what I'm doing with the kids too. It's to build your own food industry. So like your own, so it was math, but you create your own hamburger joint or your own taco stand or whatever. And he really went into like the details of the fractions of like making a hamburger. So what you buy wholesale. From this wholesale, how many pieces do you create? And then, dividing like lettuce, you get, I don't know, a pound of lettuce. How much lettuce is in each hamburger? What's the percentage that goes thrown in the trash.
Wow. What grade was this?
This is 7th grade, I think.
Okay.
And none of the other teachers were teaching this. And I absolutely loved it. It was very difficult because like in Fishbowl, we teach a little bit less than that. Like you have wholesale, you have retail. We don't go into the depths of like how much, this head of lettuce, how many hamburgers can you use with this head of lettuce? We don't do that. But it got them thinking.
Yeah.
Like it's not just a hamburger. It costs thousands and thousands of dollars every single day to run this restaurant, the McDonald's that you just bought a $5 Happy Meal from. That I love. So explanations, like you were saying, is a big deal for me. But not a lot of parents and faculty think that way, and that's kind of where I'm at to kind of break that barrier and kind of say, where would you be if you were, at their age and someone gave you this opportunity? Would you have felt different? Would you have been able to be in a different place in your life right now? So I'm huge with that. But
I think it's very hard to break the school system that's been around for many, many years. I always say I went to school for 12 years, from first grade to 12th grade. And I had A's and B's. I was a good student, you would say, but you don't remember anything out of it.
Yeah.
And the reason you don't remember out of it because you rush through everything.
Yeah.
And you have to memorize it like a parrot rather than understand the language. I mean, math, geometry, geography.
Yeah.
Everything is a language, and they don't explain you the ABCs and the sentences and everything. They just say it to you raw and like I'm not raw, but like they say it to you like you have to remember it like a parrot. 2 + 2 is 4. Why? Because it is.
Unless I have to say, unless you had that special teacher.
But how many of those do you
I
have?
have like 5 or 6 that even from elementary school. And I went to the same school that our kids go to.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. My picture's on the wall. I will show you next time. Yep. I still remember those teachers. I remember the ones that actually cared about me, that gave me that time of day, that showed me that, if I think a little bit differently, it's not a big deal. We can pivot. We can make it so that you can and that still exists now. So it's just hard. It's hard to change a system. So yes, like the overall system is hard to change, but there are some really, really good people and teachers and admins and that really are doing it for the right reasons. And that is like life-changing.
But it's not guaranteed.
No,
not everybody has that option.
Not everybody has that option.
But that's why it's so important what your messages and what you're doing with Fishbowl is so important because you are giving that opportunity for the other schools that don't have that readily available for them. A lot of the teachers, unfortunately, they're jaded at this point, and they're just unhappy. And having that structure and having organizations like Fishbowl be there to share this next level of thinking because even I didn't go to college, school max that I paid attention was algebra 2 and I'm like I'm good with this.
Algebra 2 is good.
Is it, and just like first quarter of algebra 2, okay, not even the whole thing. But that's I still continually use that with business today,
right?
And I just don't see for my business anyway the need for geometry.
No, not everybody
memorizing all the angles and things like that,
an area, and
right, all those. But if I had the organization, if I had that available to me growing up, I mean, I can't even imagine where I'd be.
Right. I feel like the Fishbowl. I'm not. I mean, I'm familiar with it, but not that familiar with it. It actually trains your brain how to come to a problem, how to solve it, how to think, and that can be relevant to math and geometry and everything.
Everything. It's also to be comfortable with failure, to understand how hard it is to get to something. Depending on what the demographics is, because, there's kids everywhere. But if we work with schools with higher demographics as far as like what their parents make, and they come and they do an event with us and they make, $200 off of being there for 4 days, they're disappointed a lot of the time. They're really disappointed. because to them, they can go like this and their parents will be like, cool, you want some Jordans for $170?
Wow.
And they didn't have to work. Whereas when you're working with like middle class or lower class, God, it's so inspiring to see some of these kids. They go and they kill it, and they make $100, $50, $500 sometimes.
Yeah,
I mean, we had a kid that made $700 at an event. All of a sudden, they're like, "Yeah, it took me some time. It wasn't that easy, but I just made this much money." You know, I mean, if we're going back, like my kid, with some of the things that he was going through, was kind of told like, it's okay, he'll get by. And this was kind of like my reason to start this. I don't like that. I don't like you'll get by, because everybody has something that they're really powerful, you know, with, that they're really, really good at. You know, like I can't do half of the things that you do, and I can't do half of the things that you do. And it's the same thing with all these kids. And so it was to teach myself that I don't have to listen to the noise of like these people that are telling my kid otherwise. And he made like 30 grand off of his first business within the first year. Wow. And he was 10 or 11. Amazing. So like, cool, thank you for telling me he'll get by. He barely did it. He did maybe an hour a week. And what we ended up doing with him, with my support, because he's still 10, but he did it. I was just there to be like, here's a little nudge. Yeah. Here's a little like, okay, you're struggling here. Oh, maybe we should try this, and maybe we should try that. And oh, you want to post it on social media? Okay, so now social media is to benefit you. Social media is not to post ridiculous TikToks and dances or whatever. It's to benefit you. Now we're going to turn it into business. Now my kid, I actually just spoke to him about this yesterday. He has a whole other business. He does things he loves soccer. So he does different posts about soccer, and he gets these players to share his posts.
Wow.
And he hit something like 12,000 likes the other day.
Wow.
And I was like, I think I need to hire you for my business. And he's not even 15 yet. So if you're inspiring them and you make it easy, just like math is just part of what you do, and English is part of what you do, and it's not like you got to get A's, B's, and whatever. Everything just becomes so much easier.
When you remove those limiting beliefs, it really changes the trajectory of things.
Yeah.
And that's and then pushing them to shoot for the stars. And having these big giant goals. So what if you don't land them? Just be unreasonable about those, goals and those targets.
Yeah.
But I bet you're going to get so much more advanced than if you were just to play it safe with a goal that you can actually reach.
Right.
And this is why
when you're uncomfortable, that's when you grow the most.
It's
100%.
The fear. If you are not scared in your gut, that I don't even want to say this out loud because I don't think it's real. It's reasonable. That's the right indication that you need to say it out loud. Yeah. And you need people to tell you, so that's crazy. Yeah. Like you're being crazy. Of course, you have to be crazy. Yeah. The crazy ones, if somebody tells you that idea is crazy, it's because no one's ever done it before.
Yeah.
And they're also not comfortable.
And they're not comfortable. That means somebody should do it. Yeah. It should be you.
Right.
Yeah. I agree.
So
there's a first for everything.